New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Guided selling from RingDNA makes your entire sales team more effective by revealing exactly what reps should do and when to do it. Guided selling works by transforming sales data into a curated list of prioritized sales actions. So when reps start their day, they'll never again wonder which prospects and accounts or hot inbound leads to reach out to next. Guided selling even shifts reps' priority in response to real-time buying signals. Finally, even new reps can sell like seasoned ones. Let RingDNA be your guide to success. Learn more at ringdna.com/guided selling. That's ringdna.com/guided selling.
It's time to accelerate. Hey friends, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 718 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record. Hey, I have another excellent episode lined up for you today. My guest is Rylee Meek. Rylee's the founder and CEO of the Social Dynamic Selling System, and is the author of a book titled Food for Thought: How to Use Dinner Seminar Marketing to Grow Your Business in Ways You Never Thought Possible. So, as you might guess from the title of that book, Rylee has a very different approach to prospecting that has been very successful for him. And when I read about what he was doing, I wanted to make sure to get him on this show to talk to you about and share with you the system that he uses. He's created the system he calls Social Dynamic Selling. And I think it's very ingenious because if you're tired of banging phones and leaving voicemails that don't get answered or emails that don't get replies, then here's a different approach. And I think you'll want to listen to this and learn because it's, as I said, quite ingenious. And also, just a caveat, don't presume that this approach is only about high-ticket B2C sales. It definitely will work in B2B as well, so stick around. Now, before we get to Rylee, I want to take a quick second to talk about the Sales House, the Sales Performance Accelerator program for B2B sellers. In the typical sales training, you learn a lot of things with one exception, which is how to win. In sales, winning orders is not the result of your process or the methodology used. It comes from doing a lot of small things extremely well. So in the Sales House, I focus on teaching you the strategies, the behaviors, the techniques, and the skills you don't learn in sales training, but that make the huge difference in your ability to actually win new business. For instance, you know how to build a relationship with a prospect, but do you know the 4 core relationship skills that enable you to build a trust-based relationship with a buyer? You've been trained how to do a discovery call. However, do you know the 2 most important pieces of information you need to learn from your prospects? And how knowing these will make all the difference between winning and losing? You've been coached how to qualify an opportunity, but do you know the one agreement you need to reach with your prospect before they can truly be considered qualified? Look, if you're not up to speed on these things, then you're at a competitive disadvantage. And the Sales House is the resource you need to reach the next level, as well as the level above that. So members get unlimited access to our courses, our checklist, our playbooks, coaching, mentoring, and an engaged community to help you sell with more confidence, trust, impact, and acumen. So come learn how to become the winningest version of you in the Sales House. Visit thesaleshouse.com. That is thesaleshouse.com. All right, let's jump into it. Rylee, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. Glad to be here. Appreciate you having me on.
Pleasure to have you on. So you're joining us from where today?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
The Twin Cities.
Betcha.
And how are the Twins handling the start to the season?
You know what? I have not been following at all. So.
Not a baseball fan?
Not really. Not too much of a baseball fan. It's they've been up and down, and they're hard to. At least this early on in the season, it's hard to get too excited about anything because 180 more games left.
Well, I'm actually a big soccer fan, and big news is the big new soccer stadium that opened up in Minneapolis for the Minnesota Loons. I'd love to go see a match up there.
Yeah, I drove by that the other day. It's quite impressive.
Yeah. So, all right. So, tell us a bit about yourself. Yeah, we're going to talk about your lead gen system that you work with companies on, but tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into sales.
Sure. Well, I am 32 years old, grew up in South Dakota.
A baby.
Yeah. Grew up in South Dakota. I moved up to Minneapolis area pretty much the day I graduated high school.
The day I could.
Yes, exactly. And people usually ask why, why'd you move to Minnesota? And it wasn't really to move to Minnesota. It was to get out of South Dakota. Nothing bad about South Dakota. Wonderful people, wonderful place to be from. There's not a whole lot going on there. And I was attracted to the big city, the city life. So
yeah, big city, big lights. Okay. So, so how'd you get into sales?
Yeah. I've pretty much been in sales my whole life. I took my very first job at the age of 15 at a gas station of all things, making pizza, hot stuff pizza. And I worked an 8-hour shift, and at that time minimum wage was $5.15 an hour. And I worked that first shift, and I did the math in my head, and I thought, there's no way I'm doing this again. And so my first day was my last day. And I've pretty much been working on my own ever since. So
things just didn't pencil out. Yeah, it's hard to think about that. Yeah, just even back then, minimum wage was just $5 an hour.
Yeah, especially in South Dakota.
Goes a little farther in South Dakota, though.
Right.
At least at that time. So tell us about social dynamic selling and what that is, and what was the impetus for starting this? Yeah,
absolutely. So. Once I moved up to the Twin Cities, I kind of looked at a number of different opportunities and sales jobs, and I experienced a little bit of success in each of those. But everything that I was selling was always a one-on-one type of approach, where I would sit down with somebody, or I would knock on the door and try to generate conversation. But ultimately, I was just talking one-on-one. Mm-hmm. I made a decent income doing that, but I kind of had the realization that my income, as much as I love sales and the higher the ticket item, the higher the commission, but ultimately it was going to be capped by the amount of time that I had in a day, because depending upon my presentation, if it was 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours, there's only a certain amount of time in each day that would allow me to make as many sales as I could.
Sure.
And so I was looking at a number of different opportunities. I'd come back I'd lived in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico for about 5 months. And I'd come back to the States when I was 23, and I was looking for an opportunity and looking around on Craigslist of all places, and came across this ad. It said, work 3 days a week and make $10,000. And I thought, well, yeah, right, but I'll inquire upon this thing. And that's really when I was introduced to this concept, this new form of selling. It wasn't really new, but it was new to me, in which this gentleman was doing presentations to groups of people. And that was really my first introduction of selling one-to-many versus one-on-one. And so he had actually invited me down to one of his events, and it was a couple hours.
What was he selling?
He was selling home remodeling products, a number of different products at the time. And
but relatively high ticket,
probably $4,000 to $5,000 packages. Mm-hmm. And so I thought I went down, not really knowing anything about it. I mean, home remodeling, I can barely hang a picture. Yeah, my wife.
Yeah, I have the same issues. If I need to, my kids used to give me a hard time when they were growing up about if we had to change light bulb. Dad had to call somebody. But yeah,
all the handyman. That's great. So it wasn't like the products, or it wasn't the product that attracted me. It was, walking into that event, and I saw a group of, 18 to 20 people there that were sitting there listening to him give a presentation. And then at the end, he asked for one-on-one appointments. And that's when it really hit me. And I realized, not only, would it leverage money for him, but it really leveraged his time, which gave him the opportunity to make more money. And that was the light bulb moment for me, where my drive back home, things didn't really end up working out for him and I, but my drive back home, I was, I just kept, didn't get a wink of sleep that night. I just kept thinking, what is it that I could sell through this format? And within, the next couple months, I formed my first company and started my own dinner seminars. And it really just kind of grew from there.
So you were putting on your own events. Were you selling yourself?
Yes, I was. So I took what he was doing and not really knowing what I was doing. I thought, well, it looks easy. I could just figure it out. And it definitely wasn't the case. It was.
Well, what was he doing that you didn't wasn't self-evident to you?
Well, more so along the, it's like they just sent out direct mail pieces and people showed up, and then he talked for a little bit and he sold them what he was talking about. And I thought, well, I could do that. So let me self-address some envelopes. Let's get some people out there. And it just obviously didn't work that as smooth as I expected. And so once I learned more about really direct mail, which is primarily the way that we do our marketing now to fill our events, learning more about, identifying who your true client avatar is, and targeting in on those. And then, making sure you're inviting the right people, but then obviously how to craft a message and how to deliver a message, or, how to take people down an emotional journey to get them to make that buying decision from a group standpoint is definitely different from a one-on-one standpoint. And that's really where the term social dynamic selling system kind of came about.
So this is your business now, is that you teach, well, I think it's two things. One is you teach companies how to do this, but then you also do turnkey for people as well, right?
Yeah. I have a few companies of my own still that we sell through this format. But a few years ago, I had, we had been somewhat successful. The first 6 months in my first company, my first venture, we did a little over $2 million in sales our first 6 months. From there, we really started to add on more reps, and we scaled. We had 26 sales crews throughout 38 states that we were doing dinner seminar sales.
Of what were you selling at that point?
At that point, we were selling home insulation, residential LED lighting, and just these little packages that would help people save money on their utility bills.
So what was the average sales price?
$5,000 to $6,000.
$5,000 to $6,000. Yeah. And so you had your company, you had 20 plus sales crews in 38 states. Mm-hmm. And each sales crew basically was working within a local geographic area to host dinners, or is it always dinners?
Yep. Always dinners.
And no charge for the dinner, right?
Correct.
Okay. And so, I just find this fascinating. So sort of walk through how you set it up. What was the not just the pitch, but in terms of getting people there, but sort of the process to make sure people showed up, which is always one of the big things. And but also just interesting too is talking about this, because I was fascinated when I first was reading about what you're doing, because I remember consulting for a client about 10 years ago who he was doing something similar, and I was actually learning a lot from him. But he was doing seminars, not necessarily dinner seminars, mm-hmm. but seminars, and was killing it with them. Unpaid seminars, generating tons of leads, generating lots of business out of it. And you see so few people doing it these days, because everybody thinks, well, hey, we'll just have a webinar. Let's just do a webinar, right? So I know I've sort of strayed far afield, but let's look at what your original sort of events were, and then I do want to talk about how some of your current clients are doing this, and we'll compare them against the effectiveness of a webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So early on, it was really just me calling, determining an area, geographically where we were going to work, calling on the restaurant, negotiating dinner times, sending out mail pieces, taking phone calls, the reservations, doing confirmation calls, showing up, delivering the presentation.
So let's look at specifics. I mean, you were trying to get how many people in a room, let's say?
In ideal, at that point in time, maybe 15 to 20 people. So,
and how many direct mail pieces would you have to send out to sort of get 15 to 20?
Yeah, probably anywhere between 3,500, 4,500 pieces. It's definitely evolved.
Those are unique addresses, or those were the total number you would send out? Because it could be multiple to one person.
Correct. Yeah, those would be unique addresses. So we would send them to Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. Come on out to this free steak dinner. We're going to teach you how to save money on your utility bills.
And was there any follow-up to all 4,500, or was it just following up with the people that responded?
No, people that responded.
Okay.
So, people often talk about their online funnel system. We really kind of just developed an offline funnel system where I was buying names and addresses, sending them my invitation. And if I had a catchy enough, I kind of call it fishing with corn dogs, where we're
a good Midwestern statement.
Right? I mean, the idea is, the reason I use that analogy is that if there's no fish in nature that will sustain its life off of corn dogs, but you throw it on a hook and put it in the water, they're going to bite it every time.
Sure.
And so that's what we were doing. If we crafted a catchy enough message, but ultimately the corn dog is the free steak dinner, free chicken dinner. I mean, that's what, if I just sent the same amount of pieces out and said, come on out and I'm going to teach you how to save money on your utility bills, I'd have a 0.000001%.
You mean if you invited them to an afternoon event with coffee?
Correct.
With coffee.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've done it. I've tried it and failed miserably. There's something special about a free meal. Yep. Everybody loves a free meal. And even above and beyond that, from the social dynamic aspect of it, they're coming to a neutral environment, one that they're probably familiar with because it's a local steakhouse or something. And it's safe. It's a neutral environment. It's safe. And the dynamic of breaking bread with somebody just helps to build that what we really have developed is just a system of know, like, and trust of our events. So that was.
As I said, I'm just so fascinated by this. So how would you set up the room then? Because I presume you wouldn't have like a dais or something because you didn't want to be separated from the people that were coming.
Right.
So, and was it just you, or did you always have a team of people so you could, mingle at the various tables and so on?
Yeah. Early on, again, it was just me. And it would, we try to get there, early, and we'd set the room up either classroom style where they're all facing the same direction, or U style, or, if you have rounds, sometimes you got to work with what the restaurant has.
Sure.
Like half, crescents again. So no backs were at you, just because you want them to be watching and paying attention and being able to see if you have props or slideshow or whatever it is, being able to see what you're doing. And we again, this was me learning early on, not knowing what the heck to do, how to set them up, what time do we have dinner, do we have salads, do we have dessert, all of that. It seems like an easy thing, which was what I thought when I was early on, but as it's evolved, we realized that this thing there was a lot of moving pieces to it, and we feel like 9 years ago now, we feel like we've really designed a well-oiled machine here, and again, what we call the social dynamic selling system.
So what does the dinner look like today? Let's say you're selling something. Do you have people are selling business to business?
No matter where your sales team is working from, RingDNA can enable them to be more productive and effective. RingDNA offers a complete platform for remote sales teams that gives reps the tools they need to connect with more prospects and create more opportunities and drive more revenue no matter where they're working from. And managers can get real-time insight they need to coach reps to success. Win more deals from anywhere on the planet with RingDNA. Learn more about how RingDNA helps remote teams at ringdna.com/remote work. That's ringdna.com/remote work.
New alarm bells ringing tonight on the coronavirus outbreak in this country.
Doctors say the virus is spread through droplets when someone coughs or sneezes.
And I think the business community, it's in their interest that people actually stay home and stop the spread.
For a business that can allow more employees to telecommute, we want you to do that.
Hi, friends. I'm Andy Paul, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast, and I want to encourage you to listen to my brand new special 6-part podcast miniseries titled Selling with Purpose. The team behind Sales Enablement Podcast and I put together this incredible series of inspiring conversations exploring what it means to sell with a mission greater than just hitting your numbers in this era of COVID-19 and beyond. So tune in to hear from world-class enterprise sales leaders and learn how their 6 companies will close $50 billion selling remotely. See how they've supported essential workers with the products and services they need to stay safe and thrive during this time of crisis. Subscribe to Selling with a Purpose now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yes.
Okay.
Majority. I would say majority of our clients are B2C, so business to consumer.
Sure.
Where we do, from a direct mail standpoint, it's easier to invite somebody who's getting mail at their home. If I'm going B2B, there are gatekeepers as far as how to get that invitation. At least from a direct mail standpoint, if you're trying to invite dentists to a meeting, usually their receptionist is collecting their mail and throwing them all the junk mail. So there are things that we do to overcome those, but majority of our clients are definitely B2C at this point.
Sure, but a little bit higher ticket items. So I mean, 4, 5, 6 set. So the actual selling dynamic is not very different from B2B at that point.
Correct.
So what does an event look like now today? So with all your experience, take us through it. If I was somebody showing up at a meeting, what would it look like to me?
If you were showing up at a meeting, okay, well, there would have probably been 2 months of planning up until this point, as far as, determining where we're going to go, down, demographically, who our ideal customer is. Whenever we take on a new client, we always start with the end in mind, and what are we trying to accomplish here? And then we back into it. Because one of the things, if somebody's selling a $48 widget, this is probably not the format for them. Because as you know, direct mail and buying dinner and stuff, it's not a cheap task. So we need to have
what's sort of a typical tab for cost for one meeting average, let's say?
Yeah. Are we downtown Manhattan or are we in,
let's assume a suburban area of a big city.
Yeah, it really depends. I did a meal this last...
Edina.
Sure. So we did a meal right here kind of in the local metro here of Minneapolis market. We did some events. I think our dinner expense was around like $26, $27 a plate. And that's all, part of what we've learned, what we teach our clients is there are tricks, so to say, or ways that you can go about negotiating with restaurants, because they love it. You're bringing in 30, 40 new people that have never been there before. And all of that is important when you're negotiating the dinner prices and, price per plate or trying to get out of room fees or things like that.
Right.
So yeah, there's, to get back really to your initial question of what does it really look like, once we've got, say, 30 RSVPs coming into an event, call it tonight here for a 6:30 dinner presentation. Our presentation holder, the seminar, our sales rep essentially should get there an hour and a half before, meet with the staff, kind of go through the timing of how the event's going to lay out. What time do we want salads? What time do we want dinner? Are there name cards? There's a lot of factors that all come into play here. Once people start showing, now you're on. You're in. I call it, it's your circus and you're the ringleader. It's up to you to perform. And certainly we help and teach and coach people how to present, and from a sales aspect, how to present one to many, but then ultimately asking for the appointments and a meeting with them after the fact as well. But usually the presentation itself is 45 minutes. Any longer than that, people are yawning and are getting bored. And there's certain things you want to do,
especially after dinner, I would imagine.
Especially after dinner, and that's
right.
With the timing aspect of when you're delivering your presentation to when dinner comes on out to when you're closing the event out, because there's people's attention spans are not long, and so you need to be doing things or enunciating things appropriately to make sure that you're keeping them awake.
And so you do the presentations like between salad and dinner, or
typically?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And again, it really depends on the product, the service, what the goal is with the event. If it's an event where it's rush to the back of the room to buy your one time only ticket or whatever it is, that's going to be completely different than majority of what we do, which is really the point of our events isn't to sell. The point of our events are to get your audience or your potential clients or customers to know, like, and trust you.
Mm-hmm.
They know, like, and trust you. Obviously, they will do business with you, or they will at least allow you to sit down one-on-one and talk about what their upcoming goals are or projects, or again, whatever it is that you're trying to market.
Now, is the presentation sort of more thought leadership, less salesy, or more salesy? I mean, what's people's, not to use the word unnecessarily, but what's people's appetite for, certain types of content while they're at this type of meeting?
Yeah. I mean, nobody likes to be sold. Everybody wants to buy. And so the point of a group setting, again, bringing people into a neutral environment where they don't necessarily feel like they're going to be pressured is very, very important. And part of the reason I named our system the social dynamic selling system, and I like talking about this because a lot of people hear the name and they're like, what is this? Social media? There's confusion with it, but I kind of like that because the real reason I called it the social dynamic selling system is that I feel like we've really gotten out of touch here in America just with all of everybody being online. And I feel like people are hungry for that social connection, like a real human being face to face.
Oh yeah.
And they break bread. And with that, there is a dynamic. When you go out to a bar, there's a social dynamic in the bar. When you're at church, there's a social dynamic happening with the church. The pastor is delivering messages. Ushers, there's all of that is considered a social dynamic, and every little thing can play into how your potential client or customer that's in the audience is feeling or responding to the sense in the room, to the music playing. And all of that is what we've learned is very, very important in making sure you're having and hosting a successful event.
So is there among the people who attend, and to your point just about social dynamic, I mean, is there any sort of like ongoing contact between the attendees after the fact? I mean, are people feeding back to you that, I met somebody at your dinner and I got a deal from him, or I did business with him, or? Certainly.
Yeah. I mean, the event is, there's many touches up until the event, from by the time once we buy that person's information to delivering the mail piece or whatever it is that we're sending to them, to them calling into RSVP, to us calling them to confirm, to them showing up at the restaurant. We want as many touches as possible up until they can make that buying decision. If they're not giving me an appointment or making that buying decision right there, they're still in our database. These are your leads. Something, and this is what we really try to hit home, because I remember early on in sales, it was like you could go buy leads and try to call people or cold call or whatever. Sure. They're never your leads. It was like if you went and try to buy I work with a solar company right now where they're used to just buying leads and trying to tell them to get appointments. And they love this system so much because they're generating their own leads. These are theirs. They're not trying to share or beat somebody else to the punchline. And so as we do an event and, maybe get 30, 40 people at the event, that is now their lead, whether they close them then or they're going to, just continue to drip on them and put them in their new funnel system online. There's numerous opportunities or numerous bites at the apple if they're doing it correctly. You can waste money doing this too. You can let a lot fall through the cracks.
Sure.
If you have a true system in place.
So, two questions spring to mind as a result of that. One is your recommendation when you work with your customers, let's say somebody that's in a local area, we'll get back to a more national approach in a few minutes, is I presume it's not, your recommendation is, well, just don't do one.
Correct. Yes.
And so what's sort of the recommendation in that regard?
Yep. So So, I mean, dependent upon my engagement with the client, we work with numerous different clients in different facets. So it could be somebody that just comes in and orders our academy or buys my book that teaches people the system, or they can go through these video training, which has templates and scripts and everything along those lines that teaches people how to do what we do. We have more of a done for you type of approach. And if someone would engage with me on that level, we are very, very hands-on. We spend what we call a dynamic strategy day with them, and we're laying out an entire game plan for a minimum of 8 weeks. Because the reason the 8-week number is just kind of a sweet spot for us is life happens. And if you just do one event, as much as I love direct mail and how I'm able to measure and respond to it, you are somewhat, reliant on the postal service, and sometimes they'll lose your mail, or sometimes they just won't deliver it when they're supposed to. And there are things that we do. We've been able to overcome 95% of most issues just with how we're able to handle and control things now. But we really commit to 8 because, as you know, sales is a numbers game. If I only am doing one event, I don't have enough numbers to get a true idea or a true sense of what my ROI is or what it would be. Where 8 weeks is what we would require from an engagement.
8 weeks meaning 8 events.
8 events, yes.
Okay.
I highly encourage weekly events, just because, especially when you're learning. When you're learning your presentation, it's you do one. If you take 3 months off to do another one, you're never gonna get a groove. That it's just refined by fire. Really is our approach.
And so that raised the question in my mind is: so are people basically then using this method as sort of in a campaign mode as opposed to sort of a sustaining mode, or do you have customers that do it? Hey, we do one a month religiously, or
one a month, one a week, one every 3 days.
But you can't do one every 3 days for a year. I mean, I guess if you're generating enough business, you can, but that's a huge logistic issue. You have to have a big team to manage that.
Yeah, well, I've got 2 employees that help me manage the 26 crews that we work with. So, it can be a huge logistic thing if you make it, or if you utilize it and are able to delegate certain aspects of what's needed. I'm a firm believer we let the pilots fly, the chefs cook, and everybody has a role. And if everybody does their job excellent, which is what we would expect, it's a well-oiled machine where, you can be in a different town, a different restaurant every 3 days if you want to. It obviously depends on what it is you're selling and what, that whole process is dependent upon what your product offering is, and is it, how it's delivered. A financial advisor is, they do dinner seminars all the time, but they're typically doing them once a month or once a quarter. You have a solar company that has, 6 sales reps doing them in different cities every single week, Mondays and Tuesdays, and they're meeting with homeowners Tuesdays and Wednesdays, closing $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 deals. So it depends on the product and the offering, but what's special about it is that it is a predictable and this is kind of our tagline: a predictable, sustainable, and scalable selling system. And the scaling aspect of it is really how I was able to grow so quickly from 0 to 2 million, and then over 12 million the next year. And it wasn't because I was out selling; it was because I was able to go from 0 from me to sales reps to 12 sales reps, 18, and by the end of the year, I had 26 sales crews in 38 states doing events every single week. It was because of the system that we had in place.
So let's look forward a little bit into how you do that if you're doing it more virtually, electronically, as opposed to direct mail, because I can just imagine, I know, just thinking we were talking, I know several companies like this client that I talked about before who, they were using the seminars very, very successfully. They were using direct mail, but they're selling to a tech audience. And I think direct mail, this is now 10 plus years since they were doing that, probably wouldn't be as effective today. So it'd be more LinkedIn, things like that. So how are you helping customers in that environment?
In the environment as far as using direct mail versus using online, like
using online ways to invite people as opposed to a webinar, but to a physical event, but just using more, digital methods to reach out.
Yep. And we've done it. We have incredible capabilities of doing it. It's just that from a return on investment standpoint, or a cost per click, or the mail piece standpoint, price per invite, it breaks down where it doesn't even compare to what we do from a direct mail standpoint. Mainly because for me, I've done webinars, many of them, and I've got to get 600 to register for me to get 80 to show, or you know what I mean? It's totally
right. No, but I'm talking about, I want to get 20 butts and seats at a restaurant, but I want to use LinkedIn to invite them, not direct mail.
Sure. Yep, absolutely. And again, what we've experienced is our butts and seat acquisition cost is much higher than a direct mail piece. Even
though LinkedIn is technically free, I mean, you're paying for your membership, but assuming you're not doing a LinkedIn ad or something, I mean, is it possible to do just through InMail and other things, or do you have to use a paid LinkedIn ad or a paid Facebook ad or something to?
Yeah, I've never done that on a high enough level where I could say that is good or bad.
Right.
And so, with my experience when we've paid for online ads or Facebook ads, it's been a much higher acquisition cost than been doing a direct mail cost. And part of it is a direct mail piece. Yes, we can direct them. We can send them to a Pearl where they can go online and learn more, and we're inviting them. But also, it's just an 800 number where they can pick up the phone and call and talk to somebody directly and registering. And our registration to show up rate is like 90 to 95% from a direct mail piece versus like a 30 to 40% from a reservation rate like from Facebook or online.
So taking that and extending that, so you're saying that if people get respond to a direct mail piece, a higher show up rate, higher yield off of it. How many touches do you have to do on average between the registration to the event to make sure they show up? Two.
Yes, from a direct mail piece. Yes, they're calling. They have a unique code. They're registering. We're asking some qualifying questions. Registering. It's less than a 2.5 minute phone call, and then the day before or night before, we're calling for the actual reminder call to show up at the event. And there's little things you do, like you ask what they're gonna order for food. Just little things that subconsciously just put them in the mode that yes, they're coming. They're committing to come to this. And that's, I think, the importance of getting a physical person on the phone versus just clicking, over the internet saying yes, I'll come, and then never think about it again.
Yeah, the follow-up piece is huge. I mean, definitely, that's how you get people to show up. Well, very interesting. I mean, I wish we could talk more about it, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. But I agree with you in general. And I think B2C or B2B, either one, is, if you can take advantage of a methodology like this, anything that gives you more human time with someone, more face, as opposed to, just using digital tools, which are valuable, but they're no replacement for people. You'll come out ahead. And so I think there's a really interesting thing if people are sort of interested in scaling up their lead gen on a more human level, then here's a way to do it. So tell people how they can get in touch with you.
Certainly. So Social Dynamic Selling is our website, socialdynamicselling.com. On that site kind of explains how we operate as a company. I've got a book, new Amazon bestseller book out called Food for Thought. You can got on Amazon.com. It's pretty inexpensive. You can learn more about the system. Otherwise, just socialdynamicselling.com is probably going to be the best way to reach out to us, and you can contact us through that website.
All right. Well, Rylee, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Okay, friends, that was Accelerate for this week. First of all, as always, I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to thank my guest, Rylee Meek. Join me again next week as my guest will be another repeat visitor, Jamie Shanks. Jamie is CEO at Sales for Life and author of Spear Selling, the ultimate account-based sales guide for the modern digital sales professional. It's a return visit for Jamie, and we're going to talk about how to take a profit-first approach to growing your sales. So be sure to join us then. And before you go, don't forget to check out the Sales House, the Sales Performance Accelerator for B2B sellers just like you. Visit thesaleshouse.com. All right, thanks again for joining me. Until next week, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
RingDNA is the leading sales enablement platform that uses AI to help scale business growth. Trusted by the top companies across the globe, RingDNA offers a suite of powerful tools for every sales role. The RingDNA Dialer radically improves sales productivity and call connection rates, while guided selling helps reps know exactly what to do and when to do it. Conversation AI uses artificial intelligence to surface the most impactful coaching opportunities in real time. So, no matter where your team is working from, the RingDNA platform can help them exponentially increase call connections, opportunities, and revenue. Learn more at ringdna.com/platform. That's ringdna.com/platform.